Hello world, Christian Truther here, and I'm here at my church today because as deacon chair of the trustee committee, I had to change a whole lot of clocks because it's time change Sunday. I got to church early to do it. I actually finished up with the 50 bazillion clocks a little early, so I decided to cut another video. Okay, maybe not 50 bazillion, but seems like it. So this is my fourth video in my series, my multi-part series on the shape of the world. Is it round or is it flat? Can we determine an objective truth regardless of what we think about it? And today's subject is going to be gravity. Is gravity real or not? Now, a little bit of housekeeping, of course. I've thrown up on our projector, which we're going to be using for Sunday morning service here shortly. But I've thrown up my ground rules. The top two are my promise to you, and the bottom two are, of course, what I expect you guys to maintain during the comment section. As always, no green screen or technological wizardry because my arguments don't need it. And if you haven't watched my first video, I do highly recommend that one because I also talk about why I'm even doing this and what my methodology is going to be. Also tackle a completely different topic, of course, but those two first ones are the main reason why you would watch that video. So let's dive right into, is gravity real or not? And let's look for objective truth. And let's start off with the fact that the flat earth model says that gravity is not real. On a flat surface, if gravity were real, which gravity says objects attract toward the greatest area of mass, then on a flat area, you would be attracted towards the Arctic region on the flat world map. And on the edges, you would feel the lean a lot more distinctly than you would towards the center. And because that's never been experienced by anyone, then they would say this is evidence that this is false, and so gravity isn't real. No need for gravity though, because density and buoyancy affect whether objects go down or up in relation to each other. And this explains why clouds, water vapor, hover in the skies and don't come crashing to the earth. It explains why helium defies the laws of gravity. And so that's because gravity isn't real and hasn't been proven. Of course, from the round earth perspective, they say gravity is absolutely necessary because we're on a ball. And people in Alaska and people in Australia both feel like their down is down towards the ground and they're not flying off of it. So they're saying gravity is absolutely necessary. So let's look at the two different viewpoints and look for the truth. First of all, Aristotle said that objects fell based on their mass, on their density, their buoyancy, and everything would find its natural state. Now the word find is bad because obviously objects are inanimate. There's no seeking or finding going on. So, but he would say they would try to find their natural state. And so they would go based on their size. But that's really what he was trying to dedicate it to. It's the density buoyancy argument. And Aristotelian thought ruled the world, dominated Western thought for thousands of years. But then along came a man by the name of Galileo, and he said Aristotle is incomplete because he's saying it's based on their mass, and objects fall at the same rate independent of their mass. He did a lot of experiments with inclined planes. He also, the story goes that he took two balls of different sizes and dropped them off the famous Tower of Pisa, and that they landed at basically the same time, proving that objects fall independent of just mass alone. Then along came Sir Isaac Newton, and he further qualified this effect called gravity, saying that objects of greater mass attract each other greater than objects of lesser mass. Basically, objects' attraction to each other is based on their mass, and it's inversely proportionate to their distance. Okay, and that was his fundamental. By the way, this guy is like the original Christian truther. Highly recommend looking into him. Not only was he a giant in the scientific world, he was also a giant in the theological world. He wrote over 1 million words on Christian topics. I find that amazing because so many Christians today, I don't think have even read 1 million words on Christianity. And this guy wrote over 1 million words. So highly recommend looking at him. And all of his equations work here on Earth. Now there were a couple things that scientists discovered outside of Earth that didn't quite line up with Newton's theories. Along came a man by the name of Albert Einstein who rectified all that. His idea was that things attracted towards each other because of bending of the space-time continuum. That objects of mass would bend space-time and that things travel along, space-time basically lines, and as objects of mass bend those lines, things bend towards those objects of mass. And it's very similar, ultimately, to Newtonian gravity. It is a big, mind-expanding thing. Highly recommend looking into it once you get some time. But it is a subtle shift, because Newtonian gravity basically is kind of like magnetism, in the sense that objects are attracting each other based on the properties of those objects. And Einstein came along and said, no, it's not really like that. Objects are following space-time lines, and the lines are being bent by objects of mass. And this explained, by the way, everything that scientists have so far discovered that didn't line up with Newtonian gravity. This explained. So, is gravity real? Well, gravity predicts rates of acceleration, because as the distance between the objects of mass close, the rate of acceleration will increase. And so therefore we have 32 feet per second here on Earth. The second per second there means that it's a rate of acceleration, meaning 32 feet in the first second of free fall, 64 feet in the second, 128 feet, it's a doubling effect until you reach terminal velocity based on wind resistance. They use that calculation in order to project trajectories, to predict what they're going to do with ballistic objects. That's how tanks hit each other. Okay? And they need that rate of acceleration, and they need it to be constant across all things, regardless of their mass and density. This is highly important because this is what we observe in reality. If it's just mass, density, and buoyancy, that doesn't explain why it's a reasonable acceleration curve across all things. In the ultimate smoking gun, I'm going to show you an experiment that was done in a vacuum chamber. We're going to take a bowling ball and a feather. I'm going to drop them. And of course, they're going to fall at the same rate, in the same rate of acceleration. But why is this proof? Well, it's proof because there's nothing in the chamber, no air molecules trying to get above them because they're less dense than the bowling ball and the feather. There is no buoyancy and density going on because there's nothing else in the chamber except the bowling ball and the feather. So I'm going to play that for you now. Release exactly the same time, slow-mo video. Now, they're falling quite slowly now, and it is slow-mo, but please notice they are going to accelerate. And accelerate at an even acceleration curve, regardless of the individual mass, density, weight, anything. And they land at precisely the same time. Interestingly enough, this same phenomenon can be seen whenever you fire a bullet and drop a bullet simultaneously. There's a wonderful Mythbusters video on there that you can take a look at and recommend that highly. And they fall at almost exactly the same rate, despite the fact one of them being fired and one of them being dropped. The difference between the two is because one bullet is spiraling and creating a turbulent wake, and it's generating a little bit of lift, but it's milliseconds, folks, milliseconds apart. And so it's faster than one of the frames per second of the video that I'm taking. That's the difference in the time between when you drop a bullet and you fire a bullet, despite the fired bullet traveling a great distance. Newton's laws of gravity were close. Einstein came along and rectified them, and we use these principles today. When someone says that gravity isn't proven, that's incorrect. It is proven because we are able to use these laws in practical applications every single day, all around the world. Gravity is real, and therefore, the flat Earth concept has a real problem. Its buoyancy and density are not enough. The scales tip towards round Earth. Until next time, this is Christian Truther, signing off.